Hey everybody, this is Aeroica. Thanks so much for stopping by to watch another video. So I finally had worked my way through till the very end, and this is the last episode, if you will, of the campaign, chapter 21, and this is the Root of All Evil dungeon. I thought I would take you through it. This will be sped up a little bit, and then we can get to the boss fight, and you can at least see what that looks like so that you can be prepared for it. So in this particular dungeon, you will mostly encounter dark troops. And because of that, I wanted to have one character that could at least do superior for those. And in this case, I ended up choosing Augustus. And then I also know that we're going to be fighting a nature enemy or nature boss at the end. So I wanted to have at least two fire heroes so that we could get the damage done pretty quick. And in this case, I chose Rogar, and I also chose Lady Nimrod. For my healer, I chose Chief Nub, and that's because even though, you know, there's nothing really here that can hurt him that bad. I mean, it's not like we're fighting fire characters, and this would not have been the healer to bring. So he's good for this. And then with the additional backup healing that Augustus offers, it was really not a problem. Now, Chief Nub is 6-star, Rogar is 6-star, Lady Nimrod is 5, and Augustus is only 3. So not exactly, fully loaded tunes here, but it, to be honest, was not that big of a challenge. In this particular setup with the mobs that I encounter, these knight-looking things that have the shield and the hammer, those are probably the most difficult, if I had to say, to get anything down because of their armor. But believe it or not, the Chief Nub does actually pretty good with that. I did not have too much trouble. Actually, he does quite a bit of damage with his little regular wand strike thing or staff strike thing, so it wasn't too bad at all here. My strategy in most of this was to take out any mushrooms just because of their haste effect. I didn't want there to be getting any extra attacks off. But other than that, they go down so easy. They're like wet tissue paper. So no big deal. To be honest with you, with all of these, it was the 5 different zones. That wasn't too bad. So here's where we end up going to the tree. Really cool cinematic piece to get down here. I was like, oh my god, this is like epic, right? Finally reached the last chapter and the last boss until they expand the chapters a little bit. So the first thing he does is send you these 5 little twigs, and they really are there's really no issue. But every time you do damage to them, if you look up at the top, you'll see that there's a bar for the boss, and they are counted as part of it. So as we do damage to them, you'll notice that the bar is going down, but we still have a little ways to go. But nothing major or nothing out of the ordinary here. They don't really do a lot of damage. They do attack a little bit fast, but nothing huge in my opinion. But you still get anxious because I'm like, oh, we're not even at the boss fight yet. So I do cast my heals here. And one of the things I was trying to do in this strategy was to make it so that I kind of obviously I didn't want to die in any of these things, but I also was trying to make sure that some of my bigger attacks would be available when we actually got to the boss, so I wouldn't have to wait too long. Especially considering the bubble for Augustus, I wanted his group bubble to be available, and I also wanted to make sure that Nub's heal would be available rather soon, which is another reason why I healed them real quick, to spend it, but also so that, to make sure we didn't walk into the boss fight half health on something and end up getting wiped out early. Just trying to set up a strategy for a boss fight that I never researched before getting here. So, all right, we are down to the last twig, and he will be taken out rather shortly here, and then we'll be on our way to the boss where all the good stuff begins. So as we move towards the boss, we get to rise up onto a little platform and go face to face with the Root of All Evil. Now, one of the things that I had mentioned earlier is that I'm trying to make sure that I've got at least some heals going into this fight, but pretty much at this point, it is my fire guys who are responsible for all of the DPS, or the damage that is going to be done to the boss. So you see that I just used Augustus Aegis Wall, and I did that to help mitigate, obviously, some of the attacks, but he does have an AoE attack that will be coming up here shortly. So even though we have these defensive measures in place, I didn't really feel like the damage he was pushing out was insurmountable, and I didn't feel that it was very difficult to deal with. I've certainly been in more difficult boss fights within this game, but it is certainly challenging to some degree. But what we have here is some of his DOT, or damage over time attacks, which can be a little bit. And here it is right here, Pestilent Breath. So you notice that the other characters that were saved by the Aegis Wall weren't affected by this, but of course Augustus was diseased, and it took a little bit of a chunk out of his health, actually a good amount of it. So the wall was definitely helpful in here, and having heals available is definitely valuable in here. And so I sped him up a little bit with a haste in an effort to try to be able to heal himself up before he died. I Rogar's Rage Strike to boost everybody's attack up so we can do some more damage a little more quickly. And then once we end up getting back to Augustus, I use his Lay on Hands to not only purge the disease, but then also heal him up so he is no longer a risk in dying for the rest of this fight. We are down to a very small fraction of this boss's health, and you'll see he's going to call back up some more twigs. Now, in a moment, you're going to see Rogar spend his whirlwind attack, and it will take them out simply because that's the way that attack works. But I would not focus on doing anything with those twigs. I would focus mainly on the boss. And the reason why is that, number one, they don't really do a lot of damage. And when you're this close, and I don't know what the limiting factor is that makes those twigs come out, but he is basically going to call more of them. And rather than have to spend more time working down these mobs, it would be better to just DPS burn the boss down, and that's exactly what happens here. We end up going to this cool perspective for the heroes, and we watch the boss sort of minimize himself back into a tree, and the boss fight is over, and I get my loot, which, by the way, happened to include the token for Rogar's father. And I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation of this, but I believe it is Dagon Stone Crusher. And in any case, this is supposed to be Rogar's father. Look for a character sheet review video on this guy. I did unlock him. I do have him available, and I will get that out to you as soon as I possibly can. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by for the video. I hope that some of this information was valuable to you and that you know what to expect when you get here. It is a neat journey to go through all of these chapters and all the boss fights and finally get to the last one. I do hope that they come out with some more chapters and expand the campaign a little bit more. And until then, this is all done for me. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you at the next video.